if this engine can handle my polygonal count and all my heavy shaders, I'm gonna keep throwing stuff at it. And I did. And I was like, this rules until it didn't. But outside of that, man, it's been awesome. Sorry, I get really excited. That's the whole CG industry is you don't find a happy spot and go, I'm totally stoked and happy where I'm at. I'm going to stay here for the rest of my life. Like, no, it's like you have to constantly move. And it's pretty misanthropic, man. Like 35 years of, punk rock will kind of do that to you. Yeah, hey, I'm Andy Lefton. I've been working in the industry, roughly 20 years. Wait, what year is it? So I've been roughly in the industry for about 20 years. I went to school here in Minnesota, in Minneapolis. And I wasn't really sure what I really wanted to do, but I knew I was really into Star Wars, right? Like that's where it always begins, right? So I loved film. I wanted to be a part of film. I also wanted to be a part of special effects. Currently, I work at Mad Microbe Studios, where we do a lot of kind of science medical based stuff, but we kind of have a more cinematic twist to what we do with that field. In my free time, which is hard these days, I try to work on personal projects, as you know. Anybody that works in the CG industry knows it's a challenge, because it's such a fast-moving, fast-paced industry that if it's hard to carve out time for personal projects. But it's something that I need to have in my life.
It's finding that time with a full-time job to then come home and have the energy, passion, and drive to do more stuff.
Yeah, yeah, man.
So it's that balance, isn't it, of like work and personal stuff?
Yeah, it is, because the job is very demanding, and at Mad Microbe, we're just constantly, grinding away constantly, and it's very busy. And so I kind of have to think about working on personal stuff, and obviously if you're passionate and you have drive, you're able to find a little bit of balance in life. Sometimes, us artist types.
Yeah.
But yeah. And so it's, sometimes like some of my personal stuff, I'll get going on it, and then you'll have to shelve it for a little while just because you're busy with other stuff. And then pick it back up later. But that's kind of been the pipeline for me.
By that time, you've probably got other ideas for other stuff. And then if you're a creative, you kind of, especially with all this fast-paced moving sort of tech, and to keep up with everything is that's demanding on its own.
It's hard, man.
Yeah.
It's not hard in the fact that like you dread it. It's hard in the fact that it's disciplinary, and it's not like you can't force it. You don't wake up and grudgingly go, man, I really don't feel like doing this, but boy, I sure do love it. It's like, you got to love it, and that's just kind of, personally where I'm at, and if I don't love it in that point, then, I'll step back.
There's a lot going on in the world of Andy Lefton.
Yeah, man. And then throw a dog in there,
Oh, and a dog. Okay. So I guess today we're on the process and we're going to be talking about one of your personal projects.
Yeah.
And today's episode, we are talking about World Suicide. So a short film made by yourself inside Unreal Engine. And this is your first time diving into the world of Unreal Engine. So can you just tell us a little bit about the project, the inspiration?
Yeah, it's kind of a wide gamut why I did it, but I think, I don't know, man. Mainly just as obviously a very powerful software platform, especially for creatives, people that want to do film and cinematics and things of that nature. And I've done short films before, with the pipeline, Cinema 4D being kind of my main 3D application. But I've done films in Cinema 4D, Redshift, and I use this stuff every single day, but I've never touched Unreal. And obviously, you want to kind of stay on top of the tech. You kind of want to stay on top of, well, what's the future hold for my job? And
true, definitely.
Yeah, so you want to be relevant,
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like kill two birds with one stone sort of approach, where I wanted to learn the program, be able to exercise my own creative license, and see what I could do with it. It kind of started out as an experiment, and it quickly became like a major obsession, man, because
Really?
when I opened Unreal, and it took, it takes you a while, you're learning. So it's like, this is the first time I ever opened it. I was just like, what the hell is this stuff?
Yeah.
This is not the kind of timeline I'm used to. But then when I read up and you studied and did some R&D and whatever, and I started realizing the power of it, man. And it took me a good handful of months to really understand Unreal, and I'm still learning it. But in the same process of learning, I was also creating, So then that's when I
Hmm.
like realized the power, and I was like, okay, boom, I'm just gonna jump right into it, and I did, and so that's where
Yeah.
World Suicide came from. But I'm gonna be spending the next handful of months submitting it to fest that kind of falls into that category for that film. So
Oh, well, best of luck,
yeah,
man.
thanks.
Did you have this project like lined up, or did the software come first and then you came up with the idea for World Suicide? How did that start?
It started. How the hell did it start, man? It's okay. Okay, so it definitely started with a concept first. So this is before Unreal Engine came into play, right?
Hmm.
So I had a concept for a ship that I did, and it's the ship that you see in the film, which is basically I titled it. It was like a Class D sand runner or something like that.
Nice. Is that design of the ship, the racer,
Yeah,
anything to do with the shape of the skull?
right. So yes, which is
I'm
really
probably jumping
interesting
the gun
because
here.
you're not the first person to catch up on that. So
Okay.
I had a couple of friends of mine that are like, dude, is that skull kind of, is there like some sort of symbolism? So yes and no. And so years and years ago, I did this holiday piece, which kind of had a similar style ship to it. And so this current one in World Suicide, the Sand Runner, is loosely based off that design. But yeah, it kind of has like a birdie, almost like a
Hmm.
elongated beak kind of feel to it. So kind of by design in that shot.
How did it get started? Did you write the idea, then storyboard? What was the actual
Yeah.
like workflow for a personal project in a new software like Unreal Engine?
Yeah.
And
So
how
I
did that
had this
start?
ship already built out. I had a concept piece done, but it was a concept piece that had no direction yet. So it was like, this is cool. I like this. I like this ship. I like where I put it in this desolate environment. And that was the frame that I had. This was kind of the catalyst behind the film, which eventually brought me into Unreal. A friend of mine, Themis, he did the music, but the music was never designed for the film. The music, he sent me his album, and the stuff he does is really kind of drony and for me, kind of thought provoking, right?
Mm.
So I was doing something in the world. I don't know, like listening to it in my headphones. And I was just, it was like his playlist that he sent me. And this song came up, which is titled Area 2. And that's the song in the film, right? And I was like, man, like this song kind of reminds me of like retro Terminator kind of
Yeah.
synth stuff, right? And I was like, this rules, man. I think I was actually working out. I was like at the gym, like doing weird adult stuff or something. And so I was listening to the song, and I'm like, the idea just started piling on because the original concept, way before Unreal, the concept of the ship was that it lived in this toxic environment, desolate wasteland world, post apocalyptic, whatever. So, from that concept idea and from the music track that my friend Themis sent me, that's where the idea came from. And then I was like, I don't want to kill myself again and create this in Cinema 4D, which can be very tedious. Texture and substance, bring everything into Redshift, blah, 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 this and this. I was like, well, screw it. I was like, man, I really like the results in Unreal. And so
Mm.
that's where that process began.
Obviously, this new like real time pipeline. Did you make like use of the store, the
Oh,
marketplace,
the Megascans of
Quixel?
Quixel?
Yeah. Did you go shopping and just grab cool stuff?
Okay.
Because I love just browsing that all
Okay.
the time to see
Yes.
what's.
So you see a lot of Quixel Megascans out there these days. It's everywhere. Like
Mm.
like if you're familiar with Unreal and you're the marketplace and Quixel, like when you're gonna see it somewhere. And I wanted to utilize the mega scans, which saved my butt, but I also didn't want to exploit them. Do you know
Mm.
what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to make it so obvious that it just I wanted to throw a film together because Quixel mega scans exists and now it makes it easier. Like I didn't want to do that. I
Hmm.
legitimately wanted to use those assets to build my world and then build around that, right?
Hmm.
So I used Brushify for the vast landscape. I use Quixel Megascans to kind of block and assemble and create this kind of world. But then I had a lot of models that I built myself to
Oh,
integrate
nice.
into a lot of the Megascans, to help it kind of live together. So I wasn't just
Hmm.
using Megascans because it looked
Yeah,
super awesome in this frame. It's like I wanted to put both my originality and my creativity in along with that as well.
nice. How did you go about, the cinematography for this inside of Unreal Engine? What was that process like
Yeah.
with the new software, the cameras,
Mhm.
the level sequencer? How did you find that way of working inside of
Man, it was
Unreal?
all trial and error.
Yeah.
It was all trial and error, and I mean, I have a much appreciation for the cinematic world and that filmic kind of feel, and that's what I strive for. But
Hmm.
in the same instance, I still have a lot to learn. Like
Yeah.
that's the whole CG industry is you don't find a happy spot and go, I'm totally stoked and happy where I'm going to stay here
Yeah.
for the rest of my life. Like, no, it's like you have to constantly move, move, move.
Hmm.
Because the industry is, and if you don't, then you're going to fall by the wayside.
Along the way of making this short film, was there any just like annoying things that just kept going wrong? Just what was like the most painful part of doing this project in Unreal Engine, if any,
Let me
that you
pull
can
out my
remember?
book here and tell you.
Yeah. Would it crash a lot? Any like behind the
Yeah,
scenes, like that was a pain in the ass
not,
to do,
but it
or
was my fault. It was crashing because it was my fault, right? Because I was new to it, and I was like, I'm going to throw everything. If this engine can handle my polygonal count, et cetera, and all my heavy shaders, no problem. I'm gonna
yeah.
keep throwing stuff at it. And I did. And I was
And
like, this rules until it didn't anymore. And it crashed because I started
yeah.
realizing about obviously it's gonna start bogging down, you start throwing too much at it and it's gonna, become kind of heavy. And also like, your GPUs, you have to have a pretty good
Hmm.
system to be running. And so I've got two, 3090s or whatever, and it kicks ass,
Oh,
man.
nice.
But
Yeah.
it has limitations, which everything's going to have limitations.
Hmm.
So I learned to find that balance so it wasn't crashing so much.
Hmm.
And then basically just the everyday pains of learning something new. But outside of that, man, it's been awesome. I think we're going to start implementing it kind of heavy at Mad Microbe. We do a lot of stuff, man. Even like we're starting to get a heavy Houdini presence at Mad Microbe. So
Hmm.
it's taking a lot of those elements and how do I recreate this in Unreal?
How much sort of integration with Cinema 4D did you have for this? I guess like when the chaser goes through the gate, was
Oh,
that kind of
like when
in
it bursts,
Cinema
like when it
4D?
crashed
Yeah, like
through
it
the
bursts through
barrier.
the
Yeah.
yeah, the barrier.
So that
Was
was
that
done. That
like
was done in
Cinema?
cinema. A good portion of a lot of the dynamic work in the film was done in Cinema 4D, exported using Cineware, imported back into Unreal or into Unreal using Datasmith, the Datasmith plugin. And that
Yeah.
saved my butt, man. If I didn't have that, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. But that was
Mm.
that was a saving grace. Same with like the
And
turret, the gun turret,
mhm.
that was
Oh,
animated in cinema.
the Sand Racer, was that because it's like sort of like flying? Was you able to just do all that inside of Unreal Engine with, to animate the
Yeah,
ship
I
and
mean,
stuff?
why
Because
not, man?
it's
Because it
yeah.
wasn't hard. It was linear.
Hmm.
It was like go from point A to point B, and all I
Yeah.
had to do was add a slight truck or rotation to the swaying of the vehicle, and and
Hmm.
and actually, like even using like the camera shake, like adding that expression or the blueprint to the vehicle itself to give it a little drrrr.
Yeah.
Man, awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
That helped immensely. Sorry, I get
So
really excited.
no, this is so fun, and I know exactly where you're coming from
Yeah.
because as soon as you figure something out, like just like a noise modifier to sort of add a little bit
Yeah.
of this, or you can have like the lens effects on the cameras and
Oh
the
man,
post-process volumes and like the fog and the dust and
dude.
the
Oh,
atmospherics. It's like you can spend 4 hours just playing around with the sky system and shadows before you even
months.
get a shot done.
Months, dude. Like on the whole like R&D with the atmosphere, because
Hmm.
you'd be like, holy crap, this looks rad right here. And then you would kind of play,
Yeah.
you'd be like, holy crap, this looks rad. So you're constantly going back and forth. And I finally had to settle, man. Dude, honestly, if I didn't stop like look deving, I'd still be sitting there tweaking stuff. So I was like, I gotta stop, man.
Yeah.
because you just have so much control. And that was another thing which got me into Unreal was the atmosphere, the atmospherics, man. Like, and so I was like, man, I don't want to learn another particle system. Damn it, you know?
Yeah.
But it took me like 10 minutes to figure out how to get like blowing sand across the
Mm.
surface. I was like, wow, like this is incredible.
When you start to discover, like you said earlier, you move the camera over there and you sort of bring the sun and you've got reflection on this, and then you go, whoa, that looks so cool. Did you develop shots as you were going because of the cool, like, that looks badass,
Yeah, I there were
you know?
so many different iterations, and it's funny because I have an archive of where when I started and where I am now,
Hmm.
and sometimes I'll go through of where it started, and at that point in the beginning, I was like, my mind was like, "This looks amazing! Holy crap! Like this is super powerful." But then you know, 30 iterations later, like now I'll go back and look at that
Yeah.
first one, I'll be like, "What was I thinking?"
Well, we are a previous studio, so with the amount of iterations that we have to do when, going from potentially blocks sliding around to the final thing, I love seeing the process of,
Yeah, and
you
I'm
know,
sorry, this is not really animatic form. This was my first test with MetaHuman. Like
oh, okay.
literally the day it was available, I was like, I'm gonna try this out, and just plopped them in just for staging. And this was one shot. This shot was actually the establishing shot of the exterior, but I didn't really like it. So you can see in the film. I mean, this was one of the first times I was working with Unreal, so I was blown away by
Yeah, man.
kind of how things were looking.
Like you said earlier,
Yeah,
okay, I need to stop now because this short's going to last for like 20 minutes if I can't,
exactly.
cut it because it's so fun to
Yeah, man,
explore.
it was insane because obviously, if you've been working in the industry and if you've been working in Unreal and Quixel and all that jazz, you're going to be able to pick that out a mile away. You know,
Mm,
so it's really a matter of trying not to overkill on a lot of that element. I don't really consider myself a character animator. I've done it before, but it's one of my weaker
hmm.
things. So I did everything kind of hand keyframed. I
I was just literally going to go on to this. Can we talk about the character in the
Yeah,
short and
yeah,
how
yeah.
did you go about that? Yeah.
And I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. You know, he was originally going to kind of turn out to be this, I don't know, just grimy looking maintenance rig worker, which this guy kind of is. But I realized I was spending too much time kind of concepting the idea, and I was like, well, the character is just this lone guy who's left out, you know, in this wasteland to kind of look over everything, and with not exactly the greatest health. And so I figured all I need is a guy really just kind of wearing a hazmat suit,
Hmm.
in this world that he works in. And so I kind of went with this. And this is a stripped down character that I purchased from Big, Medium, Small.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just really wanted something basic. And I did manipulate a little bit of the gas mask, and then I just created this general seating of him. And then I created a blueprint of this in Unreal, and then I just added him to the vehicle.
How did you find the metahuman stuff? Did you get on with it?
The MetaHuman came out right in time for me to be able to have that element. And so me personally pushing the envelope with MetaHuman was there's a close-up shot of his face. And I was really sketched on that. And I'm sure you can probably pull that up, but there's that scene. We maybe hang on him for a couple seconds, but you see him blinking and his eyes kind of moving up and down from the dashboard. And the control that I probably had that animated in 20 minutes. I had a little bit of jiggle on his gas mask,
Mm,
separate from his body and separate from the ship or the vehicle, because I wanted to give that, if everything moved in unison, it wouldn't look right.
hmm.
So having the mask kind of bob separately from his facial bob from the vehicle bobbing gave it that effect that it was a pretty jarring ride.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
And how about the story itself? Like,
Yeah.
where did that sort of inspiration come from for the actual story? Storytelling.
So you mean just the actual idea behind the film itself?
Yeah, just the idea itself,
Yeah.
world
So I
suicide,
mean,
and
it's pretty misanthropic, man. Like 35 years of punk rock will kind of do that to you, But honestly, it's also like the state of the world that we're in right now, man.
mm,
It's like you can believe whatever you want to believe, but from my own personal perspective, it's what my eyes tell me,
Yeah.
and it's like you want to live in a happy world with happy people and nice breathable air, you know, and be generally safe, right? And I think like kind of the current times we're in right now is like I think a lot of people aren't really feeling that,
Yeah.
it's you don't really have a lot of control. And I think this film was a little bit of a cathartic release for me
Nice.
because I if you look at any of my other films like Two Worlds or like Fat Chance or even the holiday piece, it's like, there's always something at the end that's like, oh, that was nice or whatever. This piece doesn't have that. Actually, let me rephrase that. This piece doesn't have that until you get to the very end because there is a little bit of hope because as we're kind of backing away at that final shot, you can see that some of the plant life, and it's cliche,
Yeah.
but some of that plant life is coming back.
Biggest learning curve in Unreal Engine, and what would you do differently next time if you was to do it again?
That's a good question because it was such a good experience. I mean, I'm not tooting any horns here. Like I'm serious. Like it was such a good experience that I'm like, any project, no matter how awesome the package is, you're gonna have headaches. It's not just the software all the time, it's the operator. There's
Mm.
always human error. Believe me, there was a lot in this one. I think it would probably be more attention to the pipeline of how the shaders and how the models are going to communicate in the engine. But the
Mhm.
thing is I learned a lot in that process, so I know what to do already. Whereas
Mhm.
like you just can't throw anything in there and expect magic to happen. Where's
Yeah.
that pretty red button that's going to make everything automatic? It's like that
Yeah.
doesn't happen. Like you got to put some work into it. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. It's been a
Mhm.
pleasant experience.
Did I mention storyboards? Did you kind of go along with a storyboard in mind at the start, or did it just evolve naturally and knowing what you wanted
Yeah.
as you was in the engine?
So like yes and no, and this was kind of interesting for me because I always I always start with storyboards. Like I always start with a rough idea or sketch on a piece of paper or something. Like I always start with something, but once I realized that you can like basically live 3D storyboard
Mhm.
and get your results in real time right there, I think I could like replace storyboarding with blocking everything out and right away.
Yeah.
Because sure I had a vision, and yeah, I was like, oh well, this is cool. What's the next shot gonna look like? And I either could have taken the time to write it down and draw it out and be like this camera, but it's already in my head.
Mm.
So I may as well, I'm already in Unreal. I may as well just jump in there and just align the camera and block it out. So the storyboards started, but they never finished just because everything was able to
Yeah.
previs in Unreal in no time.
You kind of cinematographer, director, previs, storyboard, all in one package at the same time, just exploring, and that's I think John Favreau said when he was in like Lion King, when he was in like the virtual world,
Yeah.
he was able to just like it was it wasn't final quality stuff. It was like previous model, but he could like explore the world and go,
Yeah.
whoa, I can
You're
I
in
can get
art.
up here and shoot this down there,
Yeah.
and it's so fun and powerful.
It is super powerful. And you also get spoiled, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like I was able to do this film with these heavy models and this crazy, texture building, et cetera, and wacky atmosphere in real time. And within a year or so, I was able to have this completely done.
Mm.
And I was working full time and being in a band and touring, and have a dog.
And a dog. I
And
was
a
going to say,
dog,
and a dog. Yeah.
Dog's priority. But yeah, but and you become a little spoiled with it. And so it's like when you have to go back to, and Cinema 4D is my baby. I love it. I'll continue to use it till the day I die, whatever. And I love Redshift, but it's like, you go back to, working in the IPR, Redshifting, you got to wait for things to kind of cook. And it's fine because you're used to it. But man, in Unreal, you just become spoiled.
Just out of interest, like that, work-life balance. Did you do it when you had chance, or did you plan it, or when you felt like it? How was that schedule in your own personal
Yeah.
time?
So, like I said, like the whole process was a learning curve, right? So
Mm.
if I had a shot in mind, I'd build out a shot. I would have to tell my lady and I would have to tell the dog, hey guys, I'm going to go bury myself in the office Saturday and Sunday because I
Mhm.
really, really want to get ahead of this. So it was kind of sporadically planned. It's Wednesday. I'm done with work at 5. I'm going to jump in Unreal till 7.
Sure.
And it was,
Just finding pockets
yeah,
of
yeah.
time over the year. Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
that was pretty much the case there.
Also, you really need to consider it's the separation and think mental health, the
Yeah.
balance. You know, you refresh your body and mind, and then it's only going to help.
Yeah. I mean, we're human, we got to recharge the
Yeah,
batteries.
yeah.
I got a 6-pack of beer downstairs waiting for me that I can't wait to hit because I'm just like, I'm
Oh,
unplugging,
nice.
man. I'm just going to grab some beers, play some
Yeah,
records, hang out with the family, like whatever. Like that's what I want to do. And it's vital.
yeah.
If you have the time and you have the energy and the mental capability to work in personal projects and your passions, absolutely do it because I think it's really important for people like us as artists to exercise that.
What are you doing on the weekend? Any plans?
I'm probably going to track. I'm recording a couple guitar tracks for the music for
Nice.
the band. So laying out some ideas there. We're booking a tour in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
So I got to talk to some connections out there, and then spending time with the dog. And I'm actually doing a music video right now too. So I kind of,
I was going to say, would you do an Unreal Engine 5 music video for your band as some kind
okay,
of like cool concept
okay. So
thing?
this is a secret. I'm finishing a music video for kind of a well-known band, and it's done in
Oh,
Unreal.
cool.
This was a risk. Like I don't know, like if the result's going to work. Like it's really a bizarre concept, and I just did it, and then I threw the idea at the band, and they were like, "Yes, yes." So
Oh,
I'm finishing up
amazing.
this weekend, and so it's interesting. It saved me a ton of time doing it in Unreal.
I just want to say thank you for sharing all that stuff with us and your
Yeah, thanks for
time
the
on a
opportunity,
Friday.
man. I love talking about that stuff.
Yeah, give us a shout anytime. I'd love to catch up again, man.
Absolutely.
Pleasure, man.
Yeah.
Have a great
Yeah, yeah.
weekend,
Cheers.
Andy.
Definitely.
All the best, man.
All right. Take
Take
care.
care. Bye, man.